What do we have here? Well, we've got a monthly minder for the years 1995 to 1996. This is, of course, my calendar book from those years, in which I recorded everything I did on a daily basis for 2 years. But what I really want to show you is here in the back. This piece of paper. This is a newspaper copy of the I Have a Dream speech by Dr. Martin Luther King. I read it in the paper on January the 12th, 1996. I was very impressed with the speech. I thought it was very interesting. He covered a lot of the problems, a lot of his hopes for the future. Very, very inspiring speech. I clipped it out of the paper and I put it in my calendar, and I've kept it all these years and often gone back and read it because it was such a good speech. But I also often think to myself, or wonder, what would Dr. King think if he were here today? What would he think of the current situation in Black America? Well, I think he'd be pleased with several developments. I think he'd probably agree that Black Americans have been fully integrated into American society. Well, not completely, but just about fully integrated. Of course, there exists a lot of racism and bigotry, but that's probably never going to disappear. And in fact, it actually exists on both sides of the color line. We do have a black president. Although he's half white, he's considered black by just about everybody. Surely that alone would count as a monumental achievement in the mind of Dr. King to have a black president. We have a whole host of national black personalities in politics, in business, sports, and entertainment. I could list, many of them, but I'm not going to right now. So I do believe Dr. King would be very happy with so much of what's happened since those days. However, I also think he'd be very unhappy with some things. And I hope he would be very actively engaged in working to correct some of the glaring problems centered within the black communities of America. Now, black Americans constitute 14% of the overall population, but they also account for an astounding 40% of the prison population. 33% of black men are in jail, on parole, or on probation. That is really, really horrible. In fact, there are more black Americans in jail today than there were slaves in early American history. Almost 846,000 in prison today, well, as of March of 2011. And I think one thing that would really upset Dr. King, as much as anything else, would be the fact that 13% of all black men have lost the right to vote due to felony convictions. White unemployment right now is 8.3%. Black unemployment is nearly double that at 14%. Which, if you count those people that have given up looking for work or are underemployed or working part-time, that rate's probably closer to 29%. Unemployment rate among black men 18 to 24 is an incredible 40%. Very disappointing. 70% of all black children are born illegitimate. 15% of whites live below the poverty line, and at the same time, nearly 28% of blacks live below the poverty line. So while the situation on one hand has certainly improved from what Dr. King mentions in his speech here, on the other hand, there's a tremendous amount left to be done. It, of course, is a terrible shame that Dr. King isn't around to address these issues and try to formulate a plan, a methodology, whatever, to try to correct some of them. Why the statistics are so pathetic and so disappointing, I've got to leave to the sociologists and the academics and all the experts. All I know is that I read this speech in 1996. I thought it was a good speech, an inspiring speech. I cut it out, and I've kept it all these years, often reading it. And again, I regret to say that Dr. King's not around to provide some leadership in solving some of the problems that still exist today.